Today I have an update on the fire situation and some preliminary timelines for the voluntary re-entry of Fort McMurray and other communities that were evacuated due to the wildfire. So with respect to the fire update, there were 12 new wildfire starts in the last 24 hours. Currently there are 18 wildfires burning, 3 out of control, 1 being held, 12 under control, and 2 turned over to local authorities. Across the province, there are approximately 1,900 firefighters, 189 helicopters, 29 air tankers, and 426 pieces of heavy equipment. With respect to the Peace River fire, the fire is now around 20,000 hectares. We're working with BC on that one as the fire is on both sides of the border. With respect to the Greenview County fire, we've got a better handle on the size of the Greenview County fire that caused the evacuation of Little Smoky a couple of days ago. It's now estimated at 660 hectares, so a little smaller than we'd originally thought. The communities of Little Smoky and Fox Creek remained under a 2-hour evacuation notice. But there was no growth in this fire yesterday, and it's now 80% contained. So we're hoping to have it fully contained today, so a bit of good news there. With respect to the Fort McMurray fire, the fire continues to burn out of control. Yesterday it grew towards Highway 63 north of Parsons Creek, but did not cross the highway. And we're not aware of any further damage to or loss of industry camps beyond Black Sands Lodge, reported loss to fire yesterday. This fire is now estimated to be more than 423,000 hectares. Weather today in the Wood Buffalo region is forecast to be 24 degrees with relative humidity of 30% and winds from the west gusting to a high of 20 kilometers per hour. Cooler weather, however, as everybody is aware, is forecast for tomorrow, and some precipitation is expected on Thursday and Friday. So, of course, we're all crossing our fingers that that happens. Now, as you know, soon after the evacuation of Fort McMurray and the other affected communities, 5 conditions were identified that must be met before the safe re-entry of residents can begin. Those conditions are, firstly, that wildfire is no longer an imminent threat. And to be clear, we add to that issue the issue of air quality, so as that too continues to be a significant threat to human health. At 8 a.m. on the Air Quality Health Index scale of 1 to 10, air quality in Fort McMurray this morning was 51. It has now fallen to 11, which is much lower, but still very high. Other conditions that must be met are that critical infrastructure is repaired to provide basic levels of service, and that essential services are restored also to a basic level. These include emergency services, fire, EMS, police, 911, open and safe transportation to and within the community, including traffic controls, access to emergency medical care and transport, access to potable water, electricity, and gas, access to food, pharmaceuticals, banks, and other essentials, and access to mental health supports. And we also need to ensure that hazardous areas are secure and that local government is reestablished. So the air quality issues we've had have set the recovery work back a bit, but progress is being made. 911 service has been restored. A retail reentry plan has been developed and will be executed once conditions allow. Hospital restoration has stalled with the poor air quality, but the mobile urgent care center is still operational. Electricity service has been restored to most and undamaged areas of the community, and this work continues. Work to restore natural gas service in Fort McMurray has been temporarily halted while an investigation is completed into the cause of an explosion in the Dickensfield area yesterday morning. And a note, there was 1 explosion, not 2, as some outlets are reporting. I won't speculate on what caused that explosion, but it only makes sense to stop that work until the investigation is done. And to remember that many hazards remain in Fort McMurray. We need to address all of them before it is safe for residents to begin to return, and we are doing this. So while recovery work is proceeding, we continue to support the evacuees. As of 8 p.m. last night, 32,153 cards have been distributed to 66,767 people for a total distribution of $69.5 million. I'm told that attendance was slow and steady with no lineups. Last night's telephone town hall had 10,511 participants. Another will be held this evening, and we're expecting even more participation with the details of the reentry that we'll be announcing today. So, with respect to the reentry timelines, I can tell you today that if the 5 reentry conditions are met, we anticipate that residents on a voluntary and phased basis will be allowed to begin to return to Fort McMurray beginning Wednesday, June 1st, with the return completed by Wednesday, June 15th, which will coincide with the hospital returning, we believe, to full operations. Now, we know that people want to return home as soon as it is safe to do so, and that is what we are working towards. If conditions change, as they did just this week, the voluntary reentry may begin later than June 1st. Safety has been our first priority from the beginning of this situation, and it will continue to be our first priority. However, by June 1st, we expect the hospital to be able to offer primary care, public health, support for home care, some mental health supports, lab services, X-ray and CT imaging, pharmacy, and limited types of emergency surgery. Natural gas service is scheduled to be up and running by the same date. Electricity service have already been restored for undamaged homes. All roads are expected to be open and safe. Here's what won't be done by June 1st. The hospital will not be equipped to offer acute inpatient care, obstetrics, dialysis, inpatient psychiatry, and long-term care. Ground and air ambulance will be available to transport urgent cases to Edmonton if and when needed. In addition, a boil water advisory will be in effect. At this point, we anticipate the boil water advisory will be in effect until near the end of June. So let me be clear that this reentry plan is voluntary. It's a matter of allowing those people who wish to return on a voluntary basis to do so in a phased and cautious way. We anticipate that many people will not return as early as June 1st, and we will support them in that decision. In particular, we will be directing that schools in the area that have been closed during the evacuation will not be conducting formal classes until September. Students will be advanced to the next grade. So let me tell you how the reentry will work. We are planning for a phased reentry of residents over the course of several days to allow for efficient traffic flow on Highway 63 and to ensure that limited services are not overwhelmed with the influx of people returning home. The reentry schedule begins in the least damaged areas where the fewest supports will be needed by returning residents. So, June 1st, the Lower Town site, Anzac, and First Nations communities. June 2nd, North Fort McMurray, which includes Timberlea and Thickwood. June 3rd, South Fort McMurray, which includes Gregoire, Saline Creek. And June 4th, Abisan, Beacon Hill, and Sapray Creek. Now, before people return to the community, there are some steps that they should consider taking. The Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo and the Provincial Operations Centre have prepared a detailed online mapping application, which we anticipate launching this afternoon. We encourage residents to check it to determine the status of their properties. This will be more detailed than the maps that are currently available, and it will give residents a clearer image of which homes have been lost and damaged. These images will be difficult to see for those of you who have lost their homes, and quite frankly, they'll be difficult to see for everybody from the community. And I encourage anyone who needs to seek out the support they need, including mental health supports available at reception centres or throughout the province by calling the Health Link toll-free line or the mental health hotline. Evacuees should call their insurance companies to determine what information the company requires about their property and any damage it may have sustained. And people should speak with their mortgage holder or lender about mortgage payment and payment options. The Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo is setting up information centres to provide a variety of services and information, including mental health supports. So to be clear, again, the community that residents will be returning to will have basic services, but full services may not be fully restored immediately. So residents who choose to return should plan to bring the things they need with them, including refilled prescriptions, a supply of non-perishable food and drinking water for people and pets, as well as a cooler, since fridges and freezers may not be usable. long sleeve shirts, long pants, rubber boots, flashlights, batteries, a camera or video camera to document any damage to property for insurance purposes, hand soap or hand sanitizer that is at least 60% alcohol. I reiterate that these timelines, and this is really important, are dependent upon the 5 conditions being met. And it's a balancing act. I mean, we don't want to have people completely commit to a certain date, but at the same time, we've been hearing more and more that people need to have some idea of the dates that they're dealing with. And so we hope we've achieved that balance through what we're announcing today. Some of the factors that will allow the reentry to occur, even the reentry to basic services that we're talking about today, are based on criteria that are beyond human control, like, for instance, the air quality. But, as I said before, it's important to give people some timelines, however tentative, so they can begin to make plans. Whether this means enrolling your kids in school in the community that you've evacuated to, or seeking temporary rental accommodations because it will be at least a couple of weeks until you can return home. Now, some people, and this is really important too, should not plan to return to Fort McMurray right away, including those who have breathing difficulties, those who are in the later stages of pregnancy or with high-risk pregnancy, and those who are receiving cancer treatment, dialysis, or other specialized medical services. We also know that some people who want to return to the community have no homes to return to. Now, our government will help ensure that Fort McMurray families have a stable place to live until they can return home. Eligible evacuees without sufficient insurance to pay for a temporary place to live and who cannot stay with family or friends can be assured that the government will help them with housing supports. The Wildfire Evacuation Transitional Accommodation Benefit, which our Cabinet agreed to today, will cover costs for eligible evacuees' damage deposit, rent, and utility connections for up to 90 days from the date of evacuation, should you be eligible. This benefit supports their housing needs until longer-term or permanent housing solutions are in place. The benefit may also apply to hotel room costs while evacuees are arranging for temporary housing. Albertans may apply for the benefit in person at any Alberta's Works office.